Hello, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news. And for a Friday night show, which mostly is about questions from you, we've got a big topic to discuss tonight because Erik ten Hag is wanted by other clubs. And we can reveal to you the two clubs believed to be chasing Erik ten Hag. Which, look, it leads to the point of Manchester United have to choose. It's decision time for Manchester United. So we'll be talking about that and the clubs that are chasing Ten Hag. This is coming from yet another Dutch source tonight. The same Dutch source who was talking about Erik ten Hag having the meeting with Manchester United at the start of the week. So we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about one other thing I really want to talk about, and we haven't had a chance to talk about this week, which I intended to talk about, was what's realistic for United next season, even if everything goes to plan, we get the right manager, we get the right signings, what's realistic for next season? And also, how many signings do we realistically need? Because I think it's less than some people think. So we'll talk about that, and we'll be taking some of your questions. But the clubs that want Erik ten Hag may blow you away, may surprise you. We'll talk about that. But before I do that, as you can see, the show is sponsored by Wash and Go. And I'm very pleased to announce that we've got the winner of the competition that we set a few weeks ago. For you to win a kit, and Washy, the Wash and Go sponsor, you might want that. It's a big green thing, which is a bottle. But ultimately, you win kits for your team. And we know that this was basically... Thank you everybody who entered. We had some amazing stories. We asked people to enter and just tell us a bit about their team and why they think they should get the kit, sponsored by Wash and Go. And I want to say thank you to everybody. There were some really inspirational stories out there. However, the story of Western Ability FC really touched everyone at the United Stand. Western Ability FC is an amazing football club for children and adults who have learning disabilities. The club is run by a great guy called Dave, who set the club up for his eldest son who has a learning disability. And when he realised that he did not have anywhere that would allow him to play football. Since starting in 2016, their mission has been to build their player confidence and happiness by doing something they love. So I'm absolutely delighted to say that the new kits and all the other prizes, which include some United Stand merch as well, are on their way to Western Ability FC. As an additional element, we're also going to create a feature about Western Ability, which we will share with you soon, as we feel their story deserves to be told to our amazing audience as well, because as a community, you know, we love football. And it's great to put some exposure onto these great football communities out there as well. Western Ability is based in Weston-super-Mare, and they are always looking for new coaches who can donate their time to help the team. So we've placed a link to their Facebook page below if you'd like to have a look at them and what they're all about. You can contact them and potentially help their awesome club. As always, a massive thank you to Wash and Go. It's been a real pleasure doing this little integration with them, and for providing the resources and the sponsorship for the competition. It's always great to have brand partners that give back to our community, our fantastic community. As always, thank you to Wash and Go. You can pick up a bottle of Wash and Go by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code, which is on the screen next to me, and you can have beautiful hair like me, shampoo and conditioner in one, 2-in-1, straight from the Amazon page. So thanks so much to Wash and Go again for supporting the United Stand community, and well done to Western Ability FC. One of the best integrations we've done, and I'm so pleased for you, and best of luck in the future. And I know there's a lot of people in the chat who will be loving it as well, because we, you know, first and foremost, we are a community, and there's lots of little things that we've done together over the years, and this is just a nice thing as well. So thank you very much for everybody who's putting nice comments live and underneath as well. Well done. And I can't wait to see pictures of the kits, which is great. Right, let's get on with the show. Manchester United news, of course, and yeah. So basically, about an hour before I went live, there was a story that came out. From, I always get his name wrong, you'll know the name now. His name's Mike Verwell. He is very close to Ajax and the Dutch League correspondent, basically saying that there are more clubs that want Erik ten Hag and their manager for next season. And we heard this from a different Dutch journalist earlier in the week about two clubs wanting Erik ten Hag, and some people said, oh, that's just Erik ten Hag putting it out there that other people are interested to try and hurry Man United up, which would have been absolutely fine. But that this is actually true. And what I can tell you tonight, that the clubs that are strongly believed, and I would say are in for Ten Hag, because obviously you're going to find out why I think they are now. It's going around the rumour mill. I've spoke to a couple of people this afternoon. That story's come out from Mike Verwell as well. I'm really intrigued to find out who these teams are that want Erik Ten Hag, and I've actually been spending probably since Wednesday when it first came out trying to find out, putting some feelers out to a few people. Ultimately, it's PSG who are interested, and it's a German club that have basically put an offer on the table. I don't know who the German club is. That is very, very hush-hush. That is on lockdown, basically. A lot of people think it's Dortmund. It wouldn't necessarily make sense it's Dortmund. I know their manager was having a bit of wobble, but they are second in the Bundesliga. Apparently it's a Champions League side as well. I mean, not necessarily a Champions League side now. You could think it's Leipzig, but then Leipzig have only just replaced Jesse Marsch for somebody else. They're not doing particularly well in the Bundesliga, but I don't know who the German team is, and nobody will say who it is. But PSG are the other team that are interested in Erik Ten Hag. And to be honest with you, that makes total sense, because they're probably trying to get rid of Pochettino to us. Trying to be optimistic here. Maybe the silence in reports are due to negotiations with Ajax. United tend to be slow in negotiations, etc., says Dan. What I would say is Erik Ten Hag wants the Manchester United job. That is his priority. But he's not going to wait around for it. Why would he? And United, it's decision time for Manchester United. Richard Arnold, and he is the CEO, needs to pull this together sooner rather than later, because we could miss out. Alan Boyle, thank you very much for the super chat. Sorry for joining the members club there. We are going to get into some of your questions there. Alex Rayner says, could it be Wolfsburg? I don't know who the German team is. I'm in a really good group chat on Twitter, actually, with some really good sort of accounts, and a lot of them were saying, well, it must be Dortmund. And I honestly don't know who the German team is. I could lie to you, and that would be a lie. All I know is that the German team, well, all we're strongly believed to know, because obviously I don't want to expose anybody, but from the research and people I've spoken to and feelers I've put out for the last couple of days and industry sort of things, the noise is that it's a German club. Remember, there's two clubs. The story is there's two clubs. Two clubs really interested in Erik Ten Hag, one of them at an advanced stage. The German club's at an advanced stage, i.e. they would like to make an offer to him. And the other club, PSG, are interested. Now, that doesn't mean that there's going to be more interest. That doesn't mean that PSG will follow through on their interest. The stronger interest is from the German club. This would make total sense anyway, because there's always been a strong indication that Ten Hag would go to the Bundesliga. Who that German club is doesn't really matter. The reality is, I mean, worst case scenario for me would be that Erik Ten Hag goes to PSG and we end up with Pochettino. So we end up with they sack. I mean, they're effectively going to sack Pochettino anyway. He's sacked, isn't he? Whether it's mutual consent, they don't want him anymore. If PSG wanted to keep Pochettino, we wouldn't have a bloody chance. So they get rid of Pochettino to replace him with Ten Hag, and we end up with Pochettino. That would be the worst case scenario. But I'd be very surprised what I know about Erik Ten Hag, and I don't know a lot about him as a personality. I just know bits about his coaching ability, and that's why I want him. But I would advise him against going to PSG. You can almost see a scenario in a year's time where United do go with Pochettino, he gets fourth place, and Erik Ten Hag fails at PSG, and everyone goes, well, we made the right decision. But there's a lot more strands to that. I mean, fourth place for Pochettino, I think, would always be his ceiling. And I mean, Erik Ten Hag at PSG, a lot of they've never won a Champions League, so it would always be dependent on how far he went in the Champions League. If we have a new coach in the next week, how many players do you think the board will negotiate and what they will give priority, buy or selling, says Flavio? I think bringing players in is most important, and I do want to talk about that in a moment anyway. But so look, take a guess on who the German team is. That's apparently the more advanced option for Erik Ten Hag. I think Dortmund would be perfect for him, but I'm not convinced it is Dortmund. So I don't know who the German team is. PSG, I would imagine. To be honest with you, am I surprised? No. I'm not surprised that PSG are interested in Erik Ten Hag. And interest can be, he's on a list of 10. Interest can be, is their priority? And who knows what that level of interest is? As I said, the German option is more advanced, whoever that team is, as we're led to believe. But ultimately, I'm not surprised. Like, as I keep saying, if Man City were looking for a manager, Erik Ten Hag would be on the list. If Liverpool were looking, he would be on the list. If PSG are looking for a manager, he will be on the list. He's made it very clear that he wants to leave Ajax this summer if the right option comes along. And PSG with ourselves, are probably the two clubs that are most likely, two big clubs, to be looking for a manager this summer. Of course he's going to be on the list. Of course he's going to be under consideration. The key is, what are United doing here? And how quick are they going to react to this? Because I think it would be a real shame. And I'm putting that bluntly. I think it'd be a real shame if we missed out. But look, I suppose the bottom line is there is interest from other clubs. And why would that be a surprise? Do I think there's any interest for Pochettino? I don't think there is. I mean, people keep talking about Real Madrid. I don't think Real Madrid want Pochettino. I'd be stunned if he ends up at Real Madrid. I don't also think Real Madrid are interested in Erik ten Hag. I don't think he's the right profile of manager for them. I think Real Madrid like to go for a sort of big super name, don't they? And I don't think they would go for that sort of manager. Would Real Madrid have appointed, and people who say, well, therefore Ten Hag's not good enough for Manchester United, would Real Madrid have appointed Klopp when Liverpool did? No. And Klopp's one of the best managers in the world. Will getting Poch exactly be like getting Moyes when Pep was available? Back then Everton was knocking on top four constantly but didn't win anything, says Sarvesh. I don't know that United were ever looking at Pep. I've never really considered whether we looked at Pep. 4 signings, I think centre-back, CDM, winger and centre-forward. Most definitely a CDM and a centre-forward, says Wayne Finnegan. We're going to be talking about that in a minute, Wayne, so thank you very much for reminding me about that. Manchester United isn't more for winning titles, only for top 4, says Illa. People don't mention Poch's highest position would be 4th, but nobody thinks the lowest he could be, possibly 5th or 6th, says Joey. And Poch simply does not beat Pop or Klopp. Ten Hag could do, says Joshua. If United had a brain, PSG wanting to get rid of Pochettino and getting Ten Hag should ring huge alarm bells. Fan base won't tolerate this much longer, says Dan Watson. I think the thing to consider about Manchester United, and look, I'm really hopeful that we're going to go down a new path. I'm really hoping we're going to go down that path of doing something new. And I think we all know that Erik ten Hag represents that. The thing about Manchester United is, and if you look at the last 9 years especially, is what is logical and good is not a logical argument. What you've just said there, surely if PSG are considering Ten Hag as a replacement for Pochettino, that's a big obvious sign that we should be looking at Ten Hag instead of Pochettino. But United don't pick up on those signs. Like the fact that Bayern Munich were basically gift wrapping as Bastian Schweinsteiger. We were like, oh, please. We should have been thinking, why are they so eager for us to buy one of their great players? Because he was injury prone. Why did we miss out on Erling Haaland and Jude Bellingham and all the mistakes we've made over the last 9 years? Why was nobody else jumping to get Jose Mourinho when we did? Like, the reality is we make decisions. Not all have been bad. They have made some good decisions, but a lot of bad decisions have been made by this club because they're not logical decisions. They're what I call, and I'm talking about the last 9 years, and like I say, I'm hoping we're going in a new direction. I think United have been very blinkered for 9 years. There's a select few people whose opinion matters. And the wider world, whether it's the fan base or anything like that, doesn't get taken into account. Now, I don't think that that's how Man City are run, and I don't think that's how Liverpool are run. I think Liverpool have decision makers, but I think they look outwards and survey the scene. Especially on transfers. Liverpool's recruitment policy is absolutely brilliant. But I think they take into account the whole picture, and then they have decision makers. I think United are very blinkered. They take into account their own opinion, and that's the right opinion, and anybody else, any other noise around it is just hysterical because they're not the ones making the decision. I don't think United's board has had an ability to open up their view and look at everything. I think they're very, very tunnel visioned, and it's like, we don't care if we get criticised, we're making the right decision. And that's why, and look, we can all argue about this, that and the other, but that is why the greatest example for me was that 3 weeks after the Liverpool loss in October, when the whole world, even the media was saying, even ex-players were saying, it's time for Ole to go. I mean, bloody hell, we even had the ex-players, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer fan club, and they were saying it's time for Ole to go. But what did our board do? Blinkered. We know best. We believe Ole's the right man, even though the whole football world, fans, media, ex-players, everybody, are saying, get rid of Solskjaer. No. In our office, we're in charge, we're right. And they made a fool of themselves because they pursued that decision to yet another embarrassment against Watford. And if they can't learn from that blinkered vision, then we're always going to be in trouble. And that is why when you come out with comments like surely United would be looking at the fact that PSG are interested in Ten Hag replacing Pochettino and realise that really you should go for Ten Hag. It depends how obsessed and tunnel vision they are for Pochettino. If they think Pochettino's right and everyone else is wrong, that's the last 9 years for you. If they're opening their eyes up and going, no, I think Ten Hag is the right option, we're heading in a new direction. We're about to bottle something else and get the Harry Maguire of managers in Poch, overpriced, subpar and bound to fail, says Brandon. And Benfica, Roma, Getafe, Spurs, teams that beat Ten Hag, says Kush. Kush, well done for doing a super chat. Nobody respects what you've just said. I mean, apart from pro Pochettino, Gary Neville does. But no, I mean, fair play. You like Pochettino, but ultimately, I could ridicule that comment in so many ways, and I'm going to respect you in as much as I can do and say that you like Pochettino, well done, but there's a million ways to ridicule what you've just said. There's nothing wrong with wanting Pochettino, but you're in the minority. You might win because the board might just be stubborn. Do you think our ex-players pundits are now hampering our ability to move forward as a football club when trying to keep up with the modern game, says Ren H? I think that's a really good point. I think you're right. I think you are right. We've seen such advances around football in the last 5 years. The United stand, its community itself, is not in isolation. There are so many things that are similar to this, different to this, but really amplify fan voice. When I was growing up, Gary Neville and Rio Ferdinand sat on Match of the Day, basically were dictating to the nation. There was nothing else. This is why I was so hungry to do something like this, because I was fed up of the scripted crap that we were getting every Saturday night from Match of the Day. I liked Soccer Saturday with Jeff Stelling and George Best and Rodney Marsh because it was something a little bit different. It was a bit more fun, but it was still a select 5 people speaking to the nation. What you now get is lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of different opinion, and the ability to not be scared to go, I know you're a legend of Manchester United, but you've been proven wrong so many times, and ultimately Gaz is the best player I've ever seen. I wouldn't trust him with my cat, let alone a football team. So just because you're a good player doesn't mean we need to respect your football analysis. Jose Mourinho wasn't a very good footballer, but his analysis is amazing. And we've seen this blossoming growth of opinion, where you can call somebody's opinion out and, more importantly, not have to follow like sheep and go, oh, he's just been on, did you see such and such on Match of the Day the other night? He was saying we should definitely get Poch, and people believe it. So I think accountability is coming through and people are having a bigger voice. Doesn't mean it's right voice all the time. Kush says, I'm not pro Poch, I just don't believe in Ten Hag, which is fine. Richard's first big decision as CEO, Arnold, yeah, and surely he wouldn't make a decision that would turn the fan base on him already. It can't really get much more toxic, says Dan Watson. Well, the reason we've put Richard Arnold on the thumbnail today is because it's decision time. You are the CEO, you are the man who speaks to Joel Glazer, you are the man who will fall on your sword if you get this wrong. And you will be the man who defies the majority to go with the minority if you go with Pochettino. And you can't hide. You know, a lot of people have issues with Ed Woodward's leadership. But the one thing I will say is that for however many long years Ed Woodward was in charge, he was responsible. It was his name that was attached with the minute successes, but also the mass failures. Now, Richard Arnold, he needs to learn fast, and I'm pretty sure he already has. It's him who makes this decision. Make sure it is you making the decision and you're not being swayed by football people or board people, because ultimately your reign will be hindered or praised by the decision you make. If you go with Eric Ten Hag, straight away you're starting off with a bit of positivity. If you go with Pochettino, people will go, you are what we thought you are. Ed Woodward's an Aldi version of Ed Woodward, because we know Ed Woodward wanted Pochettino. Ed Woodward wanted Pochettino for years. He just never got the right opportunity. If Richard Arnold truly is the new CEO with a new voice and a new way, it has to be Ten Hag. If he goes with Ed Woodward, he's really just what we've had before. I reckon United have already chosen the next manager. They're just waiting for the right time to announce it. That's why there is spin in the media, says Jack Lynch. Somebody said that today. I would totally disagree with you, Jack, because I think you're logical. You're definitely logical. United might be sitting on it and waiting. That could happen at other clubs, but not at Manchester United. I think I've heard it from a few people today saying the decision has been made to get Ten Hag. They're just waiting till Ajax win the league and then they're going to announce it. I've also heard people saying the decision's been made. It's Pochettino. They're just trying to sort a deal out with PSG. I don't think the decision has been made, because United, once they've made a decision, it will leak within seconds. Everything leaks from United. We've got the evidence of it. So I don't think they have made their decision yet. I'd love to think they had, but I don't think they have made their decision, because I think if they have, United just can't keep leaks out. We need goals. Kane scores goals. Simple, says Manchester. The problem with Harry Kane is, mate, is he'll cost over £100 million, and that's all our budget. Gone, gone, gone. So I wouldn't go for Harry Kane. I think we need to buy 3 or 4 players. It's last chance saloon for the United board, says Noel. Look, I don't want to ramp the pressure upon the board. I've got to be honest. I think there are 2 paths here. I think if they get Ten Hag, there'll be an optimism around the team and the club for the next 6 months, and they can ride that optimism. I think if they go with Pochettino, there will be a lot of frustration around the club, and with the lack of clarity around the shares and the fact that we're coming up for a year of the Super League, I think it could get volatile. And basically, ultimately, the club cannot have a moan about that. They have an option that can bring some positivity and an option that can bring frustration. And regardless of that, we know there's a bubbling of resentment anyway around various different issues. The club can put a lid on that, or they can open that lid up. And they might not be able to put a lid on it anyway, but I do think that Erik Ten Hag would bring a lot of positivity in the fan base and a little bit of patience, whereas Poch might be viewed as more the same. Last time Man United won a title was under Jose Mourinho, says Turbo. Yeah, it's a long years. It's a long years. And Kyle Marr says we've got to ramp it up on the board. Well, I think we are. I think in a respectful way, I don't think anybody can ramp it up anymore. It's so clear what the fans want. It's so clear where the club needs to go, and it's so clear that other clubs are looking at Erik Ten Hag, as we've spoken about 20 minutes ago. So, you know, there are other clubs who want Erik Ten Hag. He wants to come to United. The fans want him. The decision is there for United to make or ignore. And woe the consequences if they make the wrong decision. Who knows what the consequences will be, but they can't say they haven't been warned. And as Chris says, you know it's going to be Poch. I personally would not be surprised if it is. But I'll be gutted, because I think the opportunity, to me, just before we move on, I can't be any blunter than this. The way I feel personally, and we're all going to have our own feelings, the way I feel personally is, if they get Erik Ten Hag, I finally have a little bit of optimism. Genuine optimism. Not guaranteed, nothing's guaranteed, but genuine optimism. If they go with Pochettino, I feel it's more of the same. And I'm like... And I've had people messaging me this week going, look, Bruno's signing a new contract, couldn't give a shit. Really don't care. And I do like Bruno, but that's what this team's done to me. It needs a massive, massive boot up the arse. A massive reinvigoration. Like, I can't overemphasise that this is the lowest point I think this club's been in my lifetime that I recall. Certainly in Premier League history. We're at our lowest ebb. Fans are becoming disenchanted with our own players. Our own players are becoming symbols of frustration. I've not really seen that. I mean, I never really liked Fellaini, but I didn't dislike him off the pitch. I just didn't like him as a player. You've genuinely got players at the moment that are disliked. They're disliked, and I don't need to name names. That's low. That's a real low ebb. People are signing new contracts, and fans are like, ugh. The club got to wake up. Forget the manager for a minute. The club have got to wake up. If anything, this manager noise has covered up the fact that we embarrassed ourselves against Atletico Madrid just over a week ago. Covered up the fact that we're not in any cup. Covered over the fact, hello everybody, we're going to be in the Europa League next year. So for all their frustration about all the manager talk, it's actually taken away from the harsh reality that this season is a shambles. These players are a shambles. The way the club's been run over the last 3 years is a shambles. And we're in a real big mess. If I was Richard Arnold and anybody, I'd be wide awake about that at night going, God, this is a bubbling pot. It's a bubbling pot of anger and frustration about where we're at. That at the moment, people have been distracted by the manager talk. If I get the manager wrong, that's just going to bubble it up even more. And I genuinely do feel like that. I think if we get Erik ten Hag, it's some optimism. It's still a hard job, but it's still optimism. If you get Pochettino, I can just see him there with Maguire and Shaw and Rashford and Bruno, and they're all my mates, and it's just more of the same. And we know what the same is. That's the reminder, isn't it? Where we're at the moment is not good. The club need to inject some positivity and optimism into the club, and I just don't see Pochettino doing that. Do you think the Glazers are having any say at all? Do you think Richard Arnold is waiting for the decision to be rubber stamped? I think Alistair ultimately, Joel Glazer probably has got the final decision as the more vocal Glazer, and the one who takes the most interest in the day-to-day running of the club. And I think he was apparently the person who said that Mourinho couldn't sell Martial 3 years ago or 4 years ago. So don't be surprised if it ultimately does come down to that. This should be a slam dunk. If they get Ten Hag and it doesn't work out, they can say to the fans, "We told you so," and hire the person they want, says Oz. Yeah, definitely. Mark, and also, I guarantee you Erik ten Hag's wages are going to be cheaper than Pochettino's as well. I mean, that's another thing. Don't ever forget that Pochettino is the minority choice and he's vastly the more expensive choice. And his signings will be vastly more expensive as well. Mark, what if we get Ten Hag and just tie his hands like we've done with Maguire? The board needs to be changed. Well, that's the next step. First of all, we need to get the manager, but that is the next step. Obviously, only getting the right manager is only a small first step. It's then how the club treat them, because every other manager has been told no about things that they want. So that's still very much the next step for Manchester United. And I think moving on to that, the next step for Manchester United, what I did want to talk to you about tonight before we get into the questions is, what do you think is realistic for Manchester United next season? Because I was thinking about this, and there's two strands to it really. What's realistic next season, and what signings do we need to make to improve next season? And I think the first thing for me is that realistically next season we're fighting for fourth. And I would qualify that by saying at the start of this season, Arsenal were fighting for fifth. Top four looked unattainable. Arsenal have just finished 8th for the last 2 seasons. They've not qualified for Europe, I think, for 4 years, the Champions League. And they come into a season where United have just bought Ronaldo and Sancho and Varane, having finished 2nd last year. Chelsea have just won the Champions League. Liverpool are recovering from a big injury crisis but are still one of the best teams in Europe, and Man City are the champions. Arsenal at the start of the season are facing this team that's second, who bought 3 superstars, the Champions League winners, the Premier League winners, and a rejuvenated Liverpool. Arsenal started this season fighting for 5th. They've now got 4th. I think United start next season with 4th as their limit, but you never know. If a Chelsea or a Liverpool or a Man City had a bad season like we have, you might get 3rd. You might do. But next season, no matter who the manager is, our limit is going to be 4th place. I believe that Chelsea, Liverpool and Man City are on a different level to us. So I think 4th place is our limit next season, even from this point, because I can't see it. Obviously, I think Ten Hag's the right manager, but I still think that next season 4th place is what we're going to be looking at. Everton protested and caused outrage when they were signing the wrong manager. I expect this fan base to do the same, says Dan Watson. Laurent Blanc won 11 domestic. I personally don't think you'll see protests about the appointment of the manager. I don't think our fan base is like that. I don't. Laurent Blanc won 11 domestic trophies in 3 years. Emery won 7 in 2. Tuchel won 6 in 2. Poch is on track to win maybe 2 in 2 years. Sean Finnerty. That's in relation to PSG coach. Mate, you put it in a good way. Pochettino at PSG has been a joke. It's not been a good period. He should have won the league last year. People say, well, he inherited a team that wasn't top. He still should have won it. They didn't do well in the Champions League, did they? And again this year. How do you think Ten Hag will deal with the massive personalities at the club overlooking the management, like with Ralph, says Connor. And Andy and Bruno. Well, look, I don't know how he will deal with it. And I think that's why Ralph Rangnick's very important to stay at the club. I also think the club needs a clear out of bigger personalities. I saw an article today saying Ronaldo, Maguire and Rashford need to go. I think there's a lot more than that, but I don't think any of those will go. And I don't want them all to go anyway. I think there needs to be a culture change at United. There needs to be a cultural reset. but a proper one, not one where Ollie puts his arm around everyone and they go out bowling every week. Do you think Ajax or Ten Hag will be asked to comment at some point, as it's been a week nearly since he was interviewed? Andy and Bruno, I don't think that will happen. I think they will keep their powder dry and just stay quiet. And Ayers says, I think the body language shows there's there is little fight or commitment among the players. You can bring Ten Hag or Poch or Zidane or anyone, but I think United needs to have a United dressing room to perform better. Well, look, the dressing room dynamics will be very different next season anyway. Pogba won't be here, Cavani won't be here, Lingard won't be here, and in their own way, they're three big personalities in the team. People will say you're having a laugh. Lingard's not fit to lace the boots of Cavani and Pogba, and that might be the case. But Jesse Lingard is a very big personality. No, you don't need me to tell you that. So those three players are definitely gone. You replace those three. Basically, you're never going to work in. If you're a manager of in a new office and there's personalities in there you don't like, you're never going to walk in from day one and get rid of all of them. It's a slow process. And basically win friends and influence people. You focus on the good people and you get them on side, and you isolate those people who are not. I remember speaking to, I think he spoke to us about it on the United Stand actually, but yeah, it must have been live. I don't think it was a private conversation. I was speaking to Paul Ince about a club that he was managing, not the current one, not Reading. And he said, I went in there and I think he was actually still playing. I don't think he was managing. And he said, I went in there and there was a core of sort of people who ran the dressing room. And I just went in there and I was myself and basically was playing better than most of them. And I got on with the people that liked me, and eventually the people who didn't like me had to get on board because they were getting isolated themselves. That's how you do it. You're never going to walk in and go, you're all sold. You go in and focus on the people who are on your side. You implement your ideas, and then they either come on board or they'll leave themselves. Don't basically just ignore their power. Ignore their power. Don't acknowledge their power, and it will dwindle. Need to stop appointing managers based on what they've done and more on how they're performing now. Ten Hag in, says Spencer. One other positive though. So I feel that next season we're probably looking at 4th place. I think that's our ceiling, unless Chelsea, Liverpool or Man City fall away like we did this year. Always seems to be us who fall away, isn't it? But I was thinking about how many players we need next season. Now, this is the next bit where I want your input. How many players do you think we need next season? Because I've heard people say we need 5 or 6 first teamers and we need a whole new bench. And I really don't think it's as bad as people think. Now, I don't want to be a friend of the Glazers here, but if we get Ten Hag, which I think we have to, and you'll understand why on this bit as well. If we get Erik Ten Hag, I actually think we could get away with 3 signings. Now, Glazers will be going, I want to hear this plan. Ideally, I want 4, but I think we can get away with 3 signings in season 1, which is, if we've got 120 million, 150 million, we could get 3 decent signings for 150 million. So the 3 positions would obviously be CDM, absolutely nailed on, 100%. Don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that. 100% CDM, right? We all agree with that. That's number 1. Number 2, centre-back. Eric Bailly will leave, and Varane has been injury prone. Maguire is suspect, and Lindelof, as much as I like him, I'm not blind to his shortcomings as well. We need a top centre-back. Ideally, you'd want someone like a Rudiger. Maybe we'll end up with an Akanji, I don't know. But we need a centre-back. So CDM, centre-back. Definitely need those. And then the third position for me would be somebody that can cover the Rashford and Ronaldo position. I don't even want or necessarily need it to be a specialist striker. I don't mind if it is. If it's a specialist striker, they cover Ronaldo absolutely fine. But if you can get somebody who can cover the striker position and out wide, then you end up with 3. Now, Nkunku comes to mind from Leipzig, but I think you get away with those 3 players. Now, let me explain why. People are going to say, well, you're losing Pogba. Donny van de Beek replaces Pogba. This is the thing for me that United need to look at as well. How much money do you want to spend in the summer? Well, United always don't want to spend much. So if I was Erik Ten Hag, I hope they spoke to him about transfers, because I would have said centre-back, CDM and the player that can play up front or off the right, or both preferably. And remember, there are certain people like Alexander Isak who could play both those positions as well. You don't need to replace Pogba because you replace Pogba with Donny van de Beek, with the manager that's got the best out of Donny van de Beek, with the manager that was the reason you bought Donny van de Beek. So Donny van de Beek comes in to replace Pogba, who, let's be honest, Pogba has even admitted himself this week, what's my role within that team? He's been on the left wing, he's been centre mid, he's been on the bench. What is Pogba's role? So you replace Pogba with Donny van de Beek, which means you don't have to buy another midfielder. So basically you sign 3 players. Now people will say, well, what about the bench? Well, if you sign those 3 players, the centre-back either starts or goes on the bench. The CDM pushes Fred or McTominay or both to the bench. And the forward goes to the bench or pushes Rashford to the bench. So you end up with a bench that's probably got McTominay and Fred on it. Maybe Rashford's on it. Probably Elanga's on it. Lindelof would be on there. Maybe a new centre-back's on there. You've already still got Tellez, Dalot or Wan-Bissaka. Not to mention you've got people like Mabry coming through. Maybe Garnacho. We've got a lot of young players coming through. You've got Garner might come back as well. I don't think the bench is a massive problem in year 1. Year 3, you want a bench like Man City and Chelsea. But year 1, if you're aiming to just get back in the top 4 and be competitive again and start playing good football, to me, you can get away with 3 signings this summer. And that's it. Centre-back, CDM and a forward that hopefully can play either down the middle or down the middle and off the right. And then you push 3 players to the bench, you promote a couple of players, you clear out people like Juan Mata, Jesse Lingard, Matic, Cavani, Pogba, Bay will probably go as well. Your bench is stronger than it has been this season, and you've got 3 players added in, and Donny comes in to replace Pogba, who also probably would end up on the bench still anyway as he rotates with Bruno. So I think we only need 3 players in year 1 if you are realistic about what our expectations are. And year 1 for me under Erik ten Hag would be build out the way we're playing football, rebuild the club, and 3 signings in, let's get going. Is 4-3-3 counter-pressing the meta now, says Tommy. I don't know what the meta is, Tommy. I think there's so many people who want to tell you what the meta is. My feeling on football is that there are people out there who will tell you know nothing about football because they've got a bloody PhD in it. But the reality is I've been watching it for close to 40 years and it is the most simple game in the world. From being a 4-year-old, no, I wasn't that young, from being a 6-year-old, going with my granddad on a Sunday morning to watch him manage his pub team and kicking a ball alongside with the subs and watching games of football, to at Old Trafford and all over the country, to watching it with you now. I've watched, I dread to think how much football I've watched. Amateur football, professional football, whatever. It's the most simple game in the world. Ultimately, it's most of the time 11 against 11, trying to put a ball into the back of a net. And what's the meta? Ultimately, there's so many core principles from the way football was played 30 years ago to now. But you do get these geniuses like Klopp and Pep who take the game to a different level. And I think what's happening is the game is becoming quicker and it's becoming more intense. And therefore, we're seeing these great football teams now that just look to dominate the ball and keep you in their own half for most of the game, and they'll do it all game. Poch is perfect for our team right now. He'd sign 2 or 3 players this summer and get us top 4 most season. Just a better Ollie. The fans want Ten Hag because it's ripping up the sheet and turning in a different direction. Spot on, Jack. Which is why I fear the board going with Pochettino, because basically Erik ten Hag is a brand new direction. Pochettino is a gift for the Glazers to get them top 4 every year and keep the brand growing. A franchise. He's a franchise manager. I guarantee American football fans will tell me loads of Pochettinos in the NFL who will be there for years, franchise managing teams, take them to them, maybe occasionally take them to the divisional final, get them into the playoffs, but never win the Super Bowl. And that's what Pochettino is. And surprise, surprise, we're managed by franchise people. Hi, Mark. Have you looked at Paqueta from Leon as the possible Rashford-Ronaldo cover signing? He could possibly be cheaper than Nkunku. I haven't really looked at him massively, Caden. But look, this is why you need to put your trust and utilise somebody like Ralph Rangnick and hopefully an Erik ten Hag as well on the transfer front. I mean, I got into a bit of a debate with somebody today. I read something. I wonder if I can get it up. That's what she said. Mark, I think our board are going to drag their heels like we always do and miss the signings we need, and whatever manager we get, they need to sell Maguire, says PJ. Right, so let's just let me just get this going for you, so then because it leads nicely into what was going to be discussed there. So basically, there was a very interesting interaction on Twitter this afternoon. So James Stewart, who has been on the United Stand before, he's a journalist who's on Heart FM and he's been on the BBC, said Man United had 2 international breaks to sack Ollie last year. They went radio silent and did nothing. This year, Man United have had 2 weeks to hire a new manager. They've gone radio silent and done nothing. This isn't a club that's changed. Don't be fooled. So quite a harsh statement there. Andy Mitten, who you'll know from press conferences, got good connections with the club, said, you want Man United to officially announce someone who isn't currently employed and contracted elsewhere. That'd go down well on all sides. And how do you know the club have done nothing? That's one hell of an assumption, written as fact. I know for a fact that Manchester United have not done nothing. I think both sides make good points. The reality is Manchester United have interviewed Erik ten Hag this week, so they've done something. The question is, have they done enough? And I think both James and Andy make very strong points. Andy's obviously going to be very defensive of the club because he gets a lot of information from the club, and James is probably just very frustrated with the board after years and years of them being frustrating. The truth, I think, lies in between, like it always does. The club have done something. They have interviewed Ten Hag. Have they done things quick enough? Probably not. But in relation to transfers and what you're talking about there, the reason, and I've had people have a pop at me about this, I've said this ain't quick enough, and people have gone, it's a very important appointment, you've got to take your time. We didn't appoint Van Gaal until after the World Cup. If it takes till June, it takes till June. And I said, it can't take till June because we'll miss out on transfer targets. You're an idiot. Your football knowledge is useless. Signings don't happen till the summer. To which I would say, remember when Antoine Griezmann led us up the garden path, literally was going to sign for us, Atletico Madrid got a transfer ban and he said he wasn't coming. I know for a fact, if that's the new buzzword, that Manchester United had been working on the Griezmann deal for 8 months before. They'd started that deal in the autumn to sign him in the summer. If you don't know the transfer world, that's up to you. I've always been fascinated by transfers, from getting home from school when I was 9 and going on teletext, page 312. Love transfers, absolutely. It's different to football when football's being played. As we know, in the summer it becomes all about transfers. I love the transfer world, and effectively, transfers are being worked on through the season. This is not even a speculation. This is a fact. Transfers are worked on during the season because there's so many facets to it. There's so much competition for a signing. You've got to get in there. You've also got to agree things like contracts, agent fees, all sorts of things. You don't just pick. The season doesn't end after the Champions League final and you go, hey, Jayden, do you fancy coming Man United still? I'd love to. I'll see you in August. Like, there's so much going on. And remember when we had Fabrizio on a few weeks ago and we were talking about Akanji? United have spoken to Akanji, and that was a month ago. In February, we've spoken to Akanji and basically said, we're interested in you, but it depends whether the manager wants you. So these people who are going, it doesn't matter if we wait till the summer to appoint the manager because that's when signings are done. I don't like to say this, but wake up and smell the bloody coffee. Because there are deals being done now that we can't get involved in. There was a story this morning about Rudiger being interested in United, but he wants to know who the coach is going to be. Do you think he's going to wait till the summer? He'll be talking to loads of clubs because he's a free agent in the summer. Kessie, never a possibility for us because that's been signed up by Barcelona ages ago. Barcelona would have been talking to Kessie's people probably back in August, maybe even in October. They knew he was out of contract in January. So we will miss out on players by not having the manager. Every day we wait, the smaller the pot of players available. And that's just a fact. If you want to wait till the summer, let's see what's left. We can talk to players now. We can talk to players, but we can't follow through because they don't know who the manager's going to be. So it's very important to some fans that we get a manager in place because mainly it's about the transfer window. With more competition these days, Poch isn't a sure thing to deliver top 4 now, same as Jose isn't a sure thing to deliver titles anymore, says Glenn. Yabba dabba do. Absolutely spot on. I mean, I sit here and say, and I'd be interested to know what you think, I sit here and say that fourth place next season looks to me like the thing we're going to have to go for. Because I just think Chelsea, Liverpool and Man City will be too good again. But let's not disrespect and say we're just going to nestle into 4th place and call it progress. Arsenal are better than us this year. They're going to buy a striker. So they're going to be starting from a position of more fluidity, chemistry and confidence. Tottenham, if they keep Kante, will be better next season. How much money are Newcastle going to spend and how much better will Newcastle be? Remember, everybody starts with 0 points. Don't write Newcastle off. A full season with Eddie Howe and a load of money spent in the summer, they will be stronger. How strong? Are they ready for a 4th place shot next year? They certainly will be the year after, because Eddie Howe will get replaced if he doesn't. Villa could be an outside bet. You never know. So there are numerous opportunities for teams to get into that 4th place race next season. And we therefore shouldn't just go, and I think it's a great point as well, we shouldn't just go, well, let's get Pochettino because he got 4th. He got Spurs top 4 times in 5 years. Yeah. When did he get sacked again? 2019. Can I just remind you, it's 2022. Will he get 4th place now? I don't know. I really don't know. It's a shambles. Man United, our board, couldn't make a toddler spelling test. What are they doing? I will lose my shit if we go for Poch, says Daniel. And what a load of bullshit. City announced Pep mid-season while Bayern were yet to win their league. Same as Eric Ten Hag situation now, says City. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think you're talking about the Andy Mitten comment about not announcing a manager when he's under a contract. You definitely can do that. I mean, it's not the norm, but you definitely can do it. And yeah. Sorry, just had to shout into the next room there because you can probably hear it as much as I can. The inability to eat a bowl of cereal without smashing into it with your spoon every time. The lack of permanent manager is another thing that messes up our momentum for next season, says Thuto. Well, we wrote the season off in November, didn't we? We did. We wrote the season off in November. We all know that. And I said it at the time. I dread to think what my hat-trick's going to be because I said in November we've written the season off and it's going to cause problems. I said in January we won't get top 4 and I think it's going to get worse over the next 18 months. And I said in March I think we're getting Pochettino. I'm really hoping I'm not going for the hat-trick. If they get Poch, the board will have to back him. Otherwise, they will look foolish. If they get Ten Hag, they can not back him and say, told you so. Says CP. And bring in Alan Pardew, top class, says Eric. And United need Leon Bailey. No, we don't. I don't think Aston Villa even want him at the moment. Newcastle will be very... I know this is the United stand, but Newcastle will be very, very depressing in the summer. They are going to sign players that we want, and they're going to attract players that we want. They will. They've got so much money, and they're basically going to go for top 4 next year. I don't think they'll necessarily get it, but they'll go for it. And unfortunately, we're going to be dipping our rod in the same pool because we can't go for Haaland. So we're going to be looking at Isaac and David and Nuno and Nunez and Tillemans and Akanji and all these players and Botman and people like that. Newcastle are going to be going for the same players. That's phase 2, though. Look, I don't want us to run ahead of ourselves, and I don't want people to get overexcited about Ten Hag either. For me, Manchester United are in a real rut. We're in a real low point, and I would describe it as probably a 5 or 6 phase plan to get back to where we need to go. If I was in the boardroom, utilising actually some business skills, I'd say there's a 6-step plan to where we need to be. First step is getting the right manager in. Second step is having the right summer. Third step is having the right first season. And fourth step, amongst all of that, is having the long-term plan to get back to winning titles by shredding our squad of the people that shouldn't be here gradually over the next 2 years and looking to build the squad that we've got. And then step 6 is actually winning a major trophy. I think some fans think you get Erik ten Hag and we're ordering, we're renting the open top tour bus for next May. No. This is another reason why we need to get. And again, I've got to be honest. I lean more towards what James Stewart said. Have we moved quick enough? No, because the manager's position is just step one, and then you're going to battle against teams like Newcastle and everybody else and Arsenal in the summer. They're all going for the same players as we are. We can't start. I mean, Newcastle, as example, can be on the phone to Alexander Isak or Nunez or anybody else they want right here, right now, saying we've got loads of money, we want to fight for the top four next year, we want to be in the Champions League in 18 months, and we want you and we'll give you massive money. Well, United are interested, I think. What are they saying to you? Well, they don't know who the manager's going to be yet, and they've not even mentioned the wages. Well, yeah, come to us. That's the big thing that people are not thinking about. We're not competing with Liverpool and Man City and Chelsea in the transfer market. We're competing with Newcastle and Arsenal and Tottenham and maybe Aston Villa. And all four of those clubs have got settled managers and settled visions. They're not spending their international break. This is the great point. Newcastle, Arsenal, Spurs and Villa, they've not sat on their arse for 2 weeks thinking, what Easter egg am I going to get? Oh, Netflix has been great. I've been watching Top Boy and Last Kingdom. They've been looking at their summer signings. What have United been doing? Interviewing managers that really they should have probably known who they wanted and got done so that they can then use next week to start getting involved in some transfers. Obviously, that's just my opinion and people might disagree with that, but open your eyes, people, and look at what the competition is. We know who we're competing with. Thoughts on from the academy and Kobe from the academy, and do you think Ten Hag would be a better manager for transfers as well? I don't know, Kian. When it comes to young players, Garnacho and Mabry and Charlie McNeil and loads of other players, I don't get overhyped about them, because even if they came into the first team, there's still going to be 2 years of development. Carabao Cup games, the odd first team start. They're not ready to make a massive difference. They are part of the long-term plan. They're stage 4, aren't they? They're part of where we're going to be in 3 years. And also, some of them will start playing first-team football and not be good enough. I think the youth talent that we've got is very exciting, but it's not a key factor in our success short-term. The manager, the summer, the recruitment, the removal of players, and how we hit the ground running next season. There's no way that Erik ten Hag can come in and go, forget the signings, I'm starting Mabry, Garnacho, I'm bringing Brandon Williams and Ethan Laird back, and I'm putting Charlie McNeil up front and we're going to win the title. That's not going to happen, is it? And James Garner's going to play in the midfield. That's not going to happen. They are part of the journey, but they're not pressured factors of the journey. They're nice to haves, they're nice to develop. Newcastle got unlucky being a relegation and hire a new manager in mid-season, otherwise they would have pounced on Ten Hag, no doubt in my mind, says Tom. Yeah, I think they probably would. I think they definitely would. Yeah, definitely. And I do think Alanga's a top talent, by the way. Don't go to sleep on Alanga. I think he's a very good player, and I think he is a big part of our future as well. And I do think the youth is going to be very important. I just can't guarantee who's going to be a success, but I do think the youth is going to be very important, because Pochettino definitely is somebody that I would respect for developing young talent, but he's not on the same level as Ten Hag. Like Ajax, way before Ten Hag. All my life, Ajax. I remember watching a programme on Newsround in the early 90s about Ajax and their youth recruitment system. I think it was on Newsround in the UK when I was about 12, because they'd scouted a lad from England. I think for some reason his name was Jesse or something like that, and it wasn't Jesse Lingard. And he'd gone over to play for Ajax at I think he was 9. Their development of youth talent at Ajax is just unbelievable. Arguably one of the best in the world. And so Erik ten Hag will be ingrained in that, and I think he's a better developer of youth talent. And we've got some really good youth talent. If Poch is smart, he should pass on the United job right now. Without the support of the fans, he will fail and will ruin him, says Remy. Mark, are you in the 90% club for Ten Hag, says Matthew Everson? No. I want him, but I'm not in the 90% club. A manager shackled by the past is limited. Doesn't matter who it is. Sat next to an ex-player would be the worst outcome of the summer, says Nick P. I don't know why Man United want to do that. I really don't. I've got no idea. Do I think Gary Neville will be disappointed if we get Ten Hag? Yeah, I do. Because I'll be disappointed if we get Pochettino. I think he was disappointed when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got sacked, as was anybody who didn't want him to be sacked. There's nothing wrong with that. But as I keep saying, for the many, not the few. I think on this one, it's such an important. One thing I keep hearing is it's such an important appointment that they've got to get it right. And it's almost like they're turning the fact that it's such an important appointment into something that bigger than it is. This would be a harder appointment if 50% of the fan base wanted Ten Hag and 50% of people wanted Pochettino. That's a hard appointment because it's close. This is an important appointment, but it's not a hard appointment. Because if you go with Ten Hag, no one's going to blame you. They're going to go, well, you made the right choice. Even if it goes wrong down the line, people will go, but they did make the right choice. Maybe we should have gone with Pochettino, but they did make the right choice. That's why when people start saying it's such an important decision and they've got to take their time, I don't think they have. I think the decision's made. The obvious appointment is Erik Ten Hag, and you make that appointment and you get on with it. The longer they take to think about it, the more they're highlighting that they might make a bad decision. And ultimately, you're right, it is a very important decision, which is why you need to make the right one. Because if you make the wrong one, you're screwed. And the wrong one is the one that people don't want. Simple as that. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. I really enjoyed the show tonight. It's flown by. Thanks for all your input. We've got a couple of super chats to read out. Rashford, Martial pays for Kane. Pogba's wages to Rudiger. 100 million Rice, Isaac. Here we go. Manchester's on he wants a job as director of football. K-Tube, thank you very much for your super chat there. It's been a fantastic show. Please smash a like on the video. I just want to say again, fantastic wash and go competition. Really, 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 really big shout out to Western Ability FC who won the kit from Wash and Go. Remember, if you want to get your 2-in-1 shampoo, Wash and Go, they'll deliver it to you. You can do that through the QR code there or go through the link in the description. Get it ordered to your door through Amazon. Mark, would you take Roy for assistant manager? No, I've been asked this before, Massacre. I don't want Roy Keane as an assistant coach. I don't want Gary Neville. I don't want Rio Ferdinand. I don't want Darren Fletcher. I don't want Nicky Butt. I don't want any of them as assistant coach. I want Erik Ten Hag to bring his own team in. And if Pochettino comes in, I want him to bring his own team in. I don't want an ex-player there, to be honest with you. Thanks everyone for watching. We're back in the morning. Some live action over the weekend as well on That's Football. I'm doing the England game tomorrow at 5:30, and then I'm doing the Formula 1 at 6 o'clock on Sunday. But we've got the normal shows in the morning both days and at 8 o'clock on both days. Obviously, we'll be back with United. I mean, I don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing. I've actually quite enjoyed talking about the future and a manager. Going back to talking about those bunch of prats next week is going to be, I don't know whether I'm looking forward to it or not, but I suppose we keep moving towards hopefully the right decision of Erik Ten Hag being our manager at some point. Please, thank you everybody who watched my video I put up. I mentioned it on the afternoon show. The link's in the video description for it, or you can just search it, Goldbridge Cooks Chicken Parmo. It's lovely. It's Goldbridge Cooking is back. Please give it a watch and tell me what you think of it. It's on my Instagram story, or you can go through the link in the video description. I'd love to get your feedback on it. Something a little bit different, especially on a Friday night. Might be a good 20 minutes you can watch and have a bit of a laugh too. I think it's quite funny. I don't want to be arrogant, but I think it's quite funny in bits, especially the story about Jaws and John and the chicken. But thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you in the morning. Really enjoyed the show. Let's just hope United make the right decision. That's all we can do at the moment. Speak to you in a bit.